Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the June 21st, 2011 meeting of the Edina City Council and the Edina Housing and Redevelopment Authority. Ms. Tim, roll call, please.
Member Bennett? Here. Member Brendel? Member Sprague?
Here.
Member Swenson?
Here.
Mayor Hovland?
Here. First of all, we need a motion to approve the meeting agenda. Is there a motion to approve the meeting agenda? Moved and seconded, we approve the meeting agenda. Discussion? All those in favor?
Your Honor, I have a couple things.
Okay.
Staff would
just as fast as Jim Van Valkenburg, the old mayor.
Staff would ask to remove an item from the consent agenda, item 4G, Minnehaha Woods special assessments. We want to address an issue with that. And also we want to add an item to the end of the reports and recommendations, item 6F, and it's the item that was in front of you tonight. It's a contingency item whereby we would provide ourselves, the City of Edina, the ability to do electrical inspections if there is a state government shutdown, because we currently receive those services from state government. We can do it ourselves, but we have to adopt this ordinance. Waive second reading tonight. We think it's important to make sure that services continue to be provided in the absence of state government. So those are the two items.
Good. Sure, yes. All right, with those two changes being requested by Manager Neal, is there a motion to adopt the meeting agenda? I think we do have a motion in a second, don't we? Yeah, all right. With those changes, then, all those in favor of approving the meeting agenda as stated, say aye. 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 Opposed, say nay. Carried. Next, we have the adoption of the consent agenda. Is there any one on the council that wishes to remove an item from the consent agenda? All right. With the exception of 4G, which has been removed from the consent agenda, is there a motion to approve the balance of the consent agenda? Moved and seconded, we approve the balance of the consent agenda with the removal of 4G. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye. 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 Opposed, say nay. Carried. And sequentially, Manager Neal, how would you like to handle the Minnehaha Woods matter?
I think sequentially, I'd like to ask Mr. Houle to take that on.
All right, why don't we deal with that one first?
Thank you.
Thank you, Manager Neal. Mayor and Council, staff would like everything to stand on this report recommendation, with the exception of what we'd request is that we pull the Public Improvement and Special Assessment Agreement for David Turk at 5500 Park Place. The dollar amounts actually were less than what's stated in the signed agreement, so we'd like to redo the agreement and bring it back to you with the next a bunch of agreements that we'll have in about 2 council meetings.
Okay, so you'd like
a motion for everything but, what was the name of it?
But David Turk, who lives at 5500 Park Place.
5500 Park Place, so moved.
Second.
Okay. Got a motion and a second to approve everything except 5500 Park Place. With respect to 4G, further discussion? All those in favor say aye. 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 Opposed say nay. Carried. We are now in the community comment portion of the agenda. Is there anyone who wishes to address an issue with the council that we won't otherwise be addressing this evening? Mr. Carlson, come on up. Where is it?
I'm Wayne Carlson. I live in Coventry Lane, and I'm here tonight to talk about my disappointment with the resolution that you passed a few months ago. It's Resolution 2011, denying permit for more than 3 cats or dogs in a home. This document was signed by Deborah Mangan on the 5th of April. The mayor has signed it but not dated it. And it starts out in paragraph 104 that the City Council conducting a public hearing on Mr. Carlson permit application on December 15, 2011. That is 7 months from now, and I hope this doesn't indicate that you make all your decisions before you have your public hearings. In paragraph 202, it talks about that you're denying, the findings are that there's inadequate space for the dogs to exercise. This doesn't stand with, 2 weeks ago I had my dogs in national competition. My 8-inch dog was #1 in the country. My Chinese Crested was #2 in the country. I would submit to you that that's evidence that I can find ways to exercise my dogs appropriately. The next contention is that barking has and will annoy other residents in the will annoy other residents. There's not been any evidence before the city, the police, or anyone has ever testified that these dogs have made noise. In fact, I get paid lots and lots of money to train dogs not to bark. My dogs perhaps bark the most at 3 seconds when they bark at something outside. I've trained them that they get a command for quiet, and they immediately run to me for a treat and stop barking. My dogs don't bark. The next contention here is the findings that the dogs are left off leash, intimidating residents. These dogs, I have spent thousands and thousands of dollars on them. And I don't think you really understand how well dogs can be trained and how valuable they are to us. There's no way that these dogs would be left out in the driveway or in the common areas to be run over by people or cars. Nor would they be let loose in the garages where there's poison there that could kill them. So it's a finding that just doesn't stand. In 203, you say that I had dogs for health reasons because they provide him exercise, but there are other means for Mr. Carlson exercise. This is really kind of a crass dismissal of what I've been going through with the VA department. It's taken years for me to develop an exercise schedule for my mental health and physical health. I brought to you a prescription from that entity to get to you the importance of having this vehicle for my exercise. You talk about the dogs being...
Mr. Carlson, your 3 minutes are up. I'm sorry I have to interrupt you, but this is a rule that the council has established to be able to treat people fairly that want to comment, and
I'm sorry.
I think we all, thank you. I did see your photo in the Sun, several photos with your award-winning dogs, but the council...
It's a shame that you're not a little more thorough in your work.
Yep.
And that you don't sign documents. And I hope you don't do that kind of stuff with development stuff. You don't get the names right, you don't get the dates right. And you do a little more research. That's my point. I'm sorry about that.
All right. Anyone else on an issue that we haven't dealt with in the last 30 days or we're not dealing with this evening wish to come forward? Seeing no one coming forward, we'll move on to the next portion of the agenda, which is the reports and recommendations section of the agenda. Under 4A, the first matter before us was a request for minor changes to building the Waters Senior Housing Project. And I think, Director Teague, you have this matter.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. This was the item that was held over by the council at our last city council meeting to gather written comment from the neighborhood. All those written comments as of last Thursday, I believe it was, are included in your packet, and we've received a series of written comments that were put in front of you this evening since that time. So the council is asked to consider whether this is a minor or a minor amendment to the site plan, or should it be referred back to the Planning Commission?
All right, thank you. Let me just kind of set the stage a little bit too. We had this matter in front of us a couple of weeks ago on June 7th, and we determined as a council that we would allow folks to comment on this matter for the 2-week period, as Director Teague has said. In that interim period, I'll back up a second. I think that night at the council meeting, we had a discussion amongst various council members as to the meaning and intent of this ordinance, and was it subject to multiple interpretations. Subsequent to the June 7th meeting, we've had dialogue with our city attorney, who thinks because there could be multiple interpretations here, that the safest route would be to send it back to the Planning Commission as a proposed amendment to the original site plan, and going back to the Planning Commission for that limited purpose of whether they should approve the amendment to the original approved site plan. So I don't know how the other individual council members are thinking about this, but it seems like the most prudent sort of course of action at this point in time to entertain sending us back to the Planning Commission for handling in the normal process, including public discussion at the Planning Commission on the proposed change. And then I imagine, based on the way our ordinance reads right now, it would come back here for the council for the same purpose after that. So, Member Swenson, then Member Sprague.
Sure. I think because when we describe minor change, and because we don't give a greater than or less than or a percentage in it, and if you look at Bloomington's ordinance, they do, that it really does have to go back. We didn't put any limit on it. And that I would ask Carrie to describe the process that would happen should we send that back.
Most certainly. It would be, a public hearing would be held at the Planning Commission. Right now, it would be tentatively scheduled for July 13th. Public notice would be sent out to residents within 1,000 feet, advertising the public hearing for both the amendment to the site plan and for the preliminary and final plat. Should the Planning Commission take action and make a recommendation to the City Council, the typical process would be to bring that back to the City Council at your first meeting in August. And that would also be a public hearing on the site plan amendment and the preliminary and final plat.
So
Go ahead.
I'll let anyone else speak, but that would be the motion that I would make if you want it made now so we can have a discussion.
Sure, that's fine.
So moved.
Is there a second? All right. And Member Sprague.
I don't think that it's vague. I think the language is clear, and I don't even think you get to an interpretive part of this ordinance until you look at the plain language. And when I went back to reread this, it simply says proposed changes affecting, which is change. And as Member Swenson said, we don't know if that's increase or decrease, but affecting building coverage and mass. And because this project changes both, it must go back per the ordinance.
Member Bennett.
I am very happy to have my colleagues now in agreement with me, because this was the position I had 2 weeks ago. I am in support of the motion to send it back. I don't think that the ordinance is vague. I didn't think it was vague when we looked at it previously. I would like there to be a particular attention when it goes back to the Planning Commission to the parking issue. It occurs to me that we have a parking regulation set for PSR, Planned Senior Residential, that's based on the number of units. That's an objective number. It's a number that can be known. There are so many units per building. The parking standard for PRD5, in other words, convalescent homes, which is the zoning that's been applied to this project, is also a finite objective standard. That is the number of beds for which a facility has sought licensing. Since this facility will not be seeking licensing in that form for beds, we have a number, 169, I believe, is the number that the proponent has stated will be the number of residents. However, that is the developer's projection or estimation of what the number of residents will be. There is no objective limit on that. There's not, and looking at the units, 139 units, potentially there could be 278 residents. Looking at our code, there is a requirement that there be a parking space for every 4 residents under PRD5. That would require 69.5 spaces, plus spaces that are required for staff and vehicles belonging to the facility itself. Looking at that possibility, I don't think we do have sufficient parking with the number of spaces that are proposed to be lost. The other parking issue, and I think this is related, is that the church's satisfaction of its parking requirement depends on use of a city lot that it gave to the city in lieu of park dedication fees. The church bears no financial responsibility, acknowledges no financial responsibility for the maintenance or replacement of that lot. In other words, it's a city lot. However, those 99 spaces are essential to the church satisfying its parking requirement. It cannot meet them without those spaces. What happens if there's a Saturday afternoon wedding or a major funeral, and that parking lot is needed for a church activity, but it's also needed for spring or summer or fall activities in the park? I think that there are some questions about parking, and again, I would hope that that issue gets examined closely when it comes to planning and when it comes back to us.
I would assume that with all the correspondence we've had on the parking-related issue, that the Planning Commission would be addressing that as well as the underlying amendment to the site plan. So thank you for those comments. Any further discussion? We've got a motion and a second. All those in favor of the motion as stated say aye. Aye. Opposed say nay. Carried. See representative of JMS Homes, I think, looking at the back of a person out there. All right. All right, Director Teague, we'll take the item 6B, which is the sketch plan review, and you might explain for folks in the audience, and maybe you have before, but we may have additional folks here that didn't hear your explanation maybe at the Planning Commission, but talk a little bit about this before you introduce the topic, a little bit about the concept of sketch plan review and why we decided to engage in this type of process.
Look at a sketch plan proposal. This was an ordinance amendment that the council approved, 2, 3, maybe 4 months ago. It's an opportunity for a property owner or a developer to come forward and present a concept that they have for a redevelopment. Rather than investing a significant amount of dollars into specific plans, get an initial read by Planning Commission and City Council before they make a formal application. So that's what's before you this evening is a sketch plan review, and they're seeking informal comment. None of the comments would be considered binding by the City Council this evening. Part of the ordinance requirement was, when we were looking at this, one of the issues that we struggled with was, do we require notification of neighborhoods? If we were to do that, if this were to be a formal application, the 60-day clock starts ticking where the city has to take action on a project. So the decision was made that we would not require a formal application and not send out that notification. As with the case with this project, and I believe we have quite a few in the audience this evening, the neighbors they're aware of the project and have provided a series of written comments for the City Council, one of which I handed out this evening, just that I received prior to the meeting. So with that, I will launch into the presentation. This property is located at 5020 and 5024 Indianola Avenue. It's up in the northeast quadrant of the city, just south of 50th. It is located just south of the Edina Covenant Church. And what the proponent would like to do is tear down the 2 single-family homes at 5020 and 5024 and utilize 2 of the lots used for parking for the church itself. And they would like to develop 7 detached homes. The total acreage of these 4 lots is just under 27,000 square feet. The proposed density here is 11 units per acre. The property currently is zoned R1 and guided for low-density residential. The maximum density in that the existing designation is between 1 and 4 acres, or 1 to 4 units per acre. So the request that's before you would require a rezoning to planned residential district and would also require a comprehensive guide plan change from low density to medium density. The medium density range in the comprehensive plan is between 5 and 12 units an acre. So this project is proposed for the high end on that medium density range. So with the comprehensive plan amendment, the council has complete discretion whether to approve or deny this project. So what you're looking at on the screen here highlighted in red, the white property indicates the R1 zoning. To the north along 50th, this property is zoned R2, our duplex zoning. And then you've got the 50th and France area. The red is commercial, and the blue is higher density residential. The Planning Commission reviewed the sketch plan at their last meeting. The minutes were provided in your packet. Just a quick summary of some of their comments. Generally, the Planning Commission liked the concept presented here, but had some concerns regarding the specific location. Some of those concerns included grading and drainage. They indicated that the applicant should pursue review with the watershed district and get some initial comment there as well. Concern over storage space for the individual units. Concern with the buildings as proposed here face the rear yards of the single-family homes to the south. What you're seeing here in this open space, there's actually single-family homes located in quite close proximity. So they had some concerns there. They felt that the site lacked depth. Again, with the front of the homes facing the single-family properties here, and we've got the parking lot that would come right up to the rear of these homes in this location here. These parking stalls here would be shared with the church and visitor and property owner parking, so that would be a shared arrangement there. They had some concerns with the increase in the density and essentially felt that if this area were rezoned and re-guided, we would really be looking at rezoning and re-guiding the entire area all the way up to 50th as medium density. There was some discussion that took place in regard to church parking. The capacity of the existing church there is 175, and based on that, they're required 58 parking stalls. Currently, there are 68 stalls there, and there would be 68 as a result of this project, but some of those spaces would be shared. 20 spaces would be removed and 20 spaces put back. Planning Commission also recommended that JMS reach out before any formal application is made to the neighborhood in the form of some type of a neighborhood meeting. Staff shares those same concerns with the Planning Commission. In particular, we're concerned with staff is concerned with the proposed rezoning with R1 on all 4 sides here in re-guiding the site to medium density when you have R1 and low density zoning on all 4 sides. Also, the request requires a number of variances as proposed here. This structure here would require a 35-foot setback, and 22 feet is proposed, so a variance would be required there. The parking area in this location would require a 20-foot setback. They're proposing a 6-foot setback, so they'd need a variance for that portion of the parking lot. Off of J Place, another variance would be required. 35-foot setback is required, and 20 feet is proposed. The north lot line right here would be a shared driveway with the church and the development. They're looking at a shared arrangement there. So a 10-foot setback is required for the parking space. They'll be requesting a 0 setback variance there as well. There would be one nonconformity that would continue. Churches are required to have at least 3 acres, for property in the R1 district. The current church property is 1.1 acres, and the result of the subdivision, they would go down to 0.8 acres. So it would continue to be non-conforming, but that non-conformity would decrease. So with that, staff can stand for questions, or JMS is here to make a presentation as well.
Could you give me that variance request on the Indianola side one more time? There's how many feet needed? 22 needed, and they're trying to get by with 6?
Yeah, right here, the parking lot, or the parking space right here, there's a 6-foot setback proposed here, and the code requires at least 20 feet on a street.
Okay. That's what I wanted to know. Okay.
You know, sometimes we talk about 0 lot line, and then there's always space on the end of each one. To me, this doesn't even hit 0 lot line because the 7th one doesn't have its own space, whether you look at it from the right or the left. The only space that anyone seems to enjoy is the space in between their buildings, which is how much?
It's 25 feet here from the structure to the lot line.
No, in between the side.
Between the side, between
A
the
0
proposed
lot
structure.
line would be a side lot line.
Oh, in this location here.
Yeah,
I believe it's about a 10-foot separation
okay.
in between the homes.
So 6 buildings have an assigned 10-foot separation and one has none, or?
For setback purposes for code, we're just looking at the perimeter.
No, I get that, but if, you know, whether this is in a R1 neighborhood or not, you look at livability for the units themselves. What I see is that they have a little bit of space to the front where the sidewalk is, or to the south, that they're on the parking lot to the north, and then they each have some sort of side area before the next house shows up, but one of the ones on the end doesn't because it's on the end, correct?
Correct.
Because
Right.
the parking goes underground from both sides, correct? Well, I can ask the developer that question. Okay. In our comp plan, did we point out this neighborhood, this particular plot as having any other use other than R1 ever?
The current comprehensive plan does not contemplate that, no. This is guided for between 1 and 4 unit per acre densities.
Okay.
Thank you. Member Bennett?
Director Teague, if I'm correct, the spaces on the west are actually parking spaces that go back to replacing those that would be lost with the project? That was what I heard in the Planning Commission discussion.
Yeah, it looks like these would be parking spaces right
Okay,
here.
and then on the east end, as Member Swenson was pointing out, that is the entrance to the underground parking garage?
Correct. Yeah, and I did fail to mention, this was another concern that the Planning Commission had about the entrance and exit onto Indianola, and there was some talk about maybe that should come off of J Place as well.
What would be, excuse me, Director Teague, what would be the proposed egress into the church parking lot? I visited it a couple of times in the last several days on foot and with a vehicle, and noted that vehicle, there's an entrance, I believe, from Indianola, entrance only, and then the exit would be out onto 50th. So what is proposed?
I believe that would stay the same. This is the entrance on Indianola, and then the entrance exit off J Place that leads up to 50th Street would be right here. Maybe we can go back to the aerial that might show. Let's see, yeah, this is the existing entrance off of Indianola here, and then the J Place entrance and exit. Those would remain the same.
Since you have that map up, Director Teague, I followed the discussion that there are 20 spaces lost, 20 spaces to be replaced. Replaced where? If the area shown, outlined in brown, is to be occupied by the dwellings.
Yeah, these would be, 16 of the additional spaces would be located right here, and I believe the other 4 are these that you had referenced earlier on the west side of that unit.
So the spaces lost from the church's parking would be replaced on the project's?
Correct, and there would
Property.
be they're talking about a shared parking arrangement there.
All right, other questions for Director Teague? Otherwise, we can invite JMS up. Member?
Yes, Your Honor, just for clarity, because this was something that was not clear during the discussion with the Planning Commission. I have a map from the comprehensive plan of future land use, and before we have more presentation on this, I'd like to look a little more carefully at this. Well, it's really clear on paper when I have it in front of my face. Hard to see on the screen. But what I notice, and I do have a hard copy. We can pass the hard copy down the row. But it appeared to me pretty clear that the border of the 50th and France in the comprehensive plan guided MXC actually ends just west of the condominiums that face Halifax. Am I correct, Director
That's
Teague?
correct. Yeah.
And that then the guide is R1, single-family residential or low-density residential, to the north, to the south, to the west, and to the east, south of that condominium project. Am I correct?
Correct, on all 4 sides.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Other questions for Director Teague at this point in time? All right. Mr. Shane Wetter, do you want to come up and talk to us a little bit about this potential project? To tell folks in the audience, this is only the second time we've engaged in this activity. We did it with another developer in our community named Ed Noonan, who was looking at creating an office building down on basically 44th and France, just south of the Edina Cleaners down there. We haven't heard anything back from him since he had a meeting with us. So this is our second endeavor, our second soiree into the world of sketch plan here. You'll need a handheld microphone.
We did
Mr.
well.
Schaumetter.
We emailed in a PowerPoint presentation earlier today, and I guess it's always a good thing when you bring it along on a chip in your pocket. Good evening. My name's Jeff Shanewetter, and it's a privilege to be back in front of you tonight. And I think it's interesting, the project we have before you. Bishop's Walk is conceived as being a single-family, detached neighborhood. And yes, it's slightly more dense than some of the land areas to the south or the east, but it's still single-family. And our history in Edina spans about 25 years, and a significant number of our previous Edina projects were on Ivy Way, which was actually the exact same zoning that we're thinking of using if this project was to go forward. And tonight, we're not here for an approval. We're here litmus testing what might be. That our company over the last 25 years has completed 43 projects in the state of Minnesota if Bishop's Walk was to become the 43rd. So recently, we, at the encouragement of the Planning Commission, did have a meeting with the neighborhood, and the church was kind enough to host that meeting for us. And I want to share a brief update with you tonight about that meeting. Several neighbors were available and attended that, and some of them will probably be here tonight to share some ideas as well. I think the nice thing about the neighbors that took the time out of their busy schedules to attend that meeting is they learned a little bit more, as will you tonight, about Bishop's Walk conceptually. And so often we have a fear of a new project or a new idea, sort of like fear of the unknown or fear of what might or might not be. That what we shared with the neighborhood and what they shared with us is that there's agreement that this isn't a great big condominium project. It's in fact a very small shoebox project. And it's not a monstrosity. It's truly single-family detached. It's exceptionally well landscaped. It's authentic custom architecture, so it's not ticky-tacky in nature. It's truly single-family, custom designed. But these are not very big homes. These are truly small homes, and they're owner-occupied. There's no net loss of parking to the church, even though the parking at the church exceeds the current parking requirement by about 10 units. And it has true pedestrian connectivity. Based on the feedback, which was very positive from the Planning Commission, they asked, how will you connect to the sidewalk system? And I'll show you that tonight. So we're kind of nestled on the edge of the neighborhood to the east or to the west of 50th and France. And we create an interesting zoning buffer. When you look at the individual homes, no common theme architecture other than sort of cottagey, but different colors, different facades. And these will all be architecturally detailed by Alexander Design out of Wayzata, working individually with our customers. The irony is since the Planning Commission meeting, we've had at least 2 phone calls a day from people that want to live here. Unexpected result. Many people currently living in the country club area and want to get closer to 50th and France and want to have a lifestyle that's more appropriate for transitional housing. Truly unexpected results. The site plan that our planning director shared shows 7 units. We originally had 8. Truly zero lot line in configuration where one wall of each unit would virtually be on their lot line, and then the common space would be between them. But as Councilmember Swenson appropriately asked, and there's 10 feet between them, well, those are actually pads, that the actual units would be more shaped like a capital C, so there would be a courtyard that would have additional setback within them. So those pads are intended sort of like a traditional R1 neighborhood, show the maximum building footprint that could exist as opposed to the exact building footprint that would exist. Bishop's Walk, and at the end of my presentation, I'm going to share with you an article that was published 30 days ago that talks about the new elements in design that address traditional housing needs. And this is really taking something that Craig Larson and I worked very hard together a decade ago on for our project in West Edina, one step further, that this is truly designed as traditional or as transitional housing, elevators, wide doorways, aging in place. This is going to be a situation where you can have 1.5 salt box, 2-story design, and generally these homes would be shorter in elevation than any of the roof elevations of any of the surrounding R1 or condominium, so much smaller buildings. That the 5 concepts that we tried to follow with this design is walk to your destinations, maintain a sense of identity with the existing neighborhood. This is not a condo project. It's not an attached unit. It's truly the streetscape is small individual detached units. So respecting the traditional roots of the neighborhood, but yet offering courtyards and luxury amenities, which is something that existing 50-year-old single-family homes don't offer. These are narrow lots, but it would be platted as a single-family, individual lot and block neighborhood for each of these, and then the garages would exist through a cross easement underneath the lots. So we've completely de-emphasized the impact of the automobile and removed significant hard coverage, which isn't something the current zoning or ordinance really contemplates here in Edina. These are homes without driveways, so very little hard cover. The open design of the interior of these homes has virtually no walls. So it has careful window placement, thoughtful window size, significant attention to details, and the multiple plans all have various facades. So this won't feel like 7 of the same home. Interior concepts, these are homes that we've built, and that the flavor and the design that you see in these homes are certainly what we would expect. These are on other narrow lots located here in Edina. And this was the master suite out of our luxury home tour last year over near Pamela Park, the den of that similar house. You ask, who's the audience for this product? Because there isn't, I can't point to another project in the community that I'd say this is exactly like that. If you liked vanilla there, you'll like vanilla here. This is truly new housing product. It's transitional, and as I said, I'll share an article with you at the end of my presentation. But we think our audience is both active professionals as well as empty nesters who prefer to age in place. And we've had some very strong results that, again, I would suggest are overwhelming. And my wife, Nancy, who does our sales and marketing, is here tonight, and she, every day, I got another call. Pre-sale interest is unsurpassed, and we believe that all 7 of these units would be sold before we actually get a chance to build them. So again, for sale, owner-occupied, vital housing stock. It's interesting, the American Lives survey recently concluded that 70% of their respondents said, I would accept a smaller home and a smaller lot to be in the neighborhood I want to be in. Interestingly, 50th and France is a neighborhood that is very attractive to many, many people that live here in Edina. This is a home that we actually built a few years ago in Country Club. This home was on a narrow lot and had about 5,100 finished square feet. So very significant home in size. It sold for more than 3 times the price that we would anticipate these homes selling at. And most interestingly, that home would fit on any one of the 4 lots that comprise the land mass underneath this project. The 2 blue dots that are circular represent the 2 homes that we would be planning to remove, and the 2 green dots represent a portion of the church's property. Interesting, comparing the scope and size of this project, which again is single family in nature, but if we put 4 homes on these sites, on these 4 individual lots at 5,000 feet apiece, with a 2 to 3 story finish level similar to what we did in Country Club, we'd have about a 20,000 foot completed structure. We think that that would be McMansion in concept and too big for this particular site. So we want to build something smaller, but yet something incredibly well done. Not that we haven't built homes that are much larger. We just think that this site is appropriate for something high quality, high amenity, but smaller. So what we would be proposing, if this project goes forward, would be 7 single-family homes no larger than 2,200 square feet. Interestingly, That'd be a total construction of 15,000 feet. Single-family homes. There are homes bigger in Edina than the entire construction area that we're proposing. So this is a flavor of housing that is a little unique, but it's a vital flavor for our community to offer, I think, certain folks an opportunity to have one of these 7 units. I wish I had more. So it'll be a blend of old world architecture and charm, but modern building science. I think Bishop's Walk would eventually be known as a place where there's a diversity of people at various life cycle stages choosing to live and belong in the Edina community. Night facades are well thought of, de-emphasizing the automobile, and certainly a pedestrian approach. As you look at the parking ratio at Bishop's Walk, you'll find that we have a 3-to-1 parking ratio. That's the largest parking ratio that I'm aware of in the city. Our garage space would accommodate at least 3 cars per unit and would offer additional storage as well. Gathering places, sidewalks, park benches, and connectivity. Interestingly, the Planning Commission asked, could we include a sidewalk connection from 50th Street to the property? Currently, there is no sidewalk in this portion of Edina. And we would propose using the city's existing right-of-way to include that sidewalk as part of this project, because that pedestrian connectivity is very important. Lifestyle at 50th and France would be an HOA association maintained property, so snow, lawn, and sidewalk maintenance would all be done for our residents, as well as their garbage removal. Design criteria, planned unit residential. One of the questions that came up at our neighborhood meeting was, what if you upzone this, because PRD would allow a 4-story monstrosity? And we said, no, the city's not going to approve a zoning change unless they approve a project with it. So certainly our expectation is that any project that was approved, it would be project first, zoning to facilitate, not zoning and then a blank card of what might happen. And I think it's very important to the neighborhood to know that this would not be approved and then later have some big condo building put on that site. And that question's been asked more than once.
Mr. Shanewater, I'm going to interrupt you for a minute. And as I mentioned earlier, this is the second occasion for using sketch plan review. I think with Mr. Noonan, what we did with the council was that as he was making his presentation, council members felt comfortable asking him questions. And I'm thinking that would be a good process to use here as well. So I don't know how much longer you have for your presentation, but if you wouldn't mind, I'm going to allow council members to just raise questions.
Interrupt me at any time, and I'll stop and take questions. Otherwise, I think
I'm sure we'll have some to conclusion of your presentation too. But why don't you first let me know what you've got left for a presentation in terms of
approximately
time?
10 more slides.
All right.
The Minnesota Green Roof Council.
Let me first ask if anyone on the council has a question for you.
At this time?
To date? Okay.
Okay.
Up to this point in time? Okay.
And I can spin back and through if you wish to see another slide again. But the Minnesota Green Roofing Council is the agency that we're following their prescriptive design, which we talked about the watershed district during staff's proposal. And they actually have a standard for how to construct a green roof. And that makes this site, with the exception of the rooftops of the houses, entirely permeable. And it's a very interesting way to manage rainwater, stormwater, and I can give you more detail on that if you'd like. But as we wrap this up, we're excited about the project. There's nothing quite like it in this community. It's a hybrid project. As I described it before, it's like a shoebox where we take the shoebox, We dig a rectangular hole, we put the shoebox in the ground, and then we cover it with sod. And then we put 7 little Monopoly houses down the rooftop. So the shoebox becomes the garage, which is a great way to have fewer driveways, less hardcover, and frankly, more storage and parking. And for those residents that didn't want a 3-car garage, they'd have options like a theater room, an exercise room, or other below-grade uses, much like people on flat lots with normal homes have. So that would all exist here. The transitional zoning, as you heard about, it's interesting. As you look at the views from the southeast, these are in scale, and our architect who's here tonight did do this design for us. It gives you a picture sort of from deep within the single-family neighborhood looking towards downtown Minneapolis, and the scale of Lunds, the condominiums, the single-family homes, and then our cottages. The view from the north, we didn't elevate the apartment building, which is the same zoning as the condominium building, because it actually blocked the view of our scalable houses, and we wanted to have those shown behind the church. This is the view from the northeast, back from the rooftop of the old Clancy's drugstore towards the church. And in this particular view, we didn't elevate the church because the church would have blocked our view. The view from the west, you can see how our single-family detached homes nest with about a 30-foot or 25-foot rear yard that's shown there in green between the existing single-family. And you get a sense from the rooftops and the scale of those existing single-family homes how much smaller these cottages are. Interestingly, when you look at the 50th and France zoning in a more global format, and I'm going to use the mouse here, the north side of 50th and France had some really good transitional zoning. The black X's are all duplex zoning, and then the blue is an apartment building here. As you go to the south end of 50th and France, we have apartments, we have condominiums, we have more condominiums, and we switch back to apartments, and then some duplex. But it really isn't a zoning that's tiered to create a smooth transition, and that's one of the struggles we have. It's interesting, as I've talked to some of the property owners as recently as mid-afternoon today, they were concerned with, well, what happened if the church went away entirely? And is your vision for the next 25 years that that church be there forever? And if you talked to some of the single-family residents to the south, they would say, well, let's just build all single-family right up to 50th Street. And if you talk to the duplex owners on 50th Street, they might say, let's do another tier of this same 7-unit project. So it really does beg a longer vision as to what should the transition be, not just today, but 25 years from today, between these different property uses. So that's the big picture of both the north boundaries and the south boundaries of 50th and France. A little closer look at this particular intersection, you have the condominium and apartments, and you have Lunds. So commercial, and 4 stories here, 3 stories up here, 4 to the south, walkout apartment or walkout configuration, and then duplex, with commercial bounding the church. And I'm not showing the church in any particular zone, but all this land would be church-owned currently. And then we have these 2 single-family homes that we're planning to take down, plus this vacated alley here, which is no longer an alley. And that's why this funny little jog in the plat exists, because that was formerly a little extra land that existed for an alley. The homes would be built to a Green Path standard. Green Path is the newest environmental standard, released only 3 weeks ago by the Builders Association of the Twin Cities. And these homes would be the first community built to an entire green standard. Uh-oh. And there we go. Hold on. I think that was our last slide. But we'll make it our last slide.
Yeah. Okay, good.
Thank you.
Council questions or comments? I could start out too, I guess, if, yeah.
I'll wait till the questions.
Okay. But, one of the questions that you kind of wrestle with in your own mind is when you see something like this, and we live in a fully developed town, and folks know what's kind of around them and their proximity to 50th and France, and they know there's an apartment building on a corner and a condominium building across from Lund's, but they have gotten used to life the way it is, and the church is a buffer, and now life as they know it might potentially change if the council did certain things, and you start thinking about what's the right way to transition to an R1 zone. Why is this a good way to transition to an R1 zone when you have 7 houses backing up to single-family homes with a 30-foot yard separation?
Well,
I'd be interested in your comment on that.
The yard separation would be the same whether it was traditional R1 or something different. The rear yard, whether it's 20 or 30 feet, would be really unchanged in how we'd plat this, whether we developed single family or we developed this 7-unit project. So the green space that is the minimum rear yard requirement in Edina would be, I believe, 20? 25? Thank you, I just got 25. So 25 feet is the minimum. And that's generally what we're showing. So there would be no change in that green buffer. Why is this a good transition? Because if you start at 50th and you work your way south, at some point you have to draw a hard line. And on the south side of 50th, we already have duplex. And 300 feet south, we have single family. So you have this zone that somehow on the north side of the 50th and France region, there was a transitional zoning buffer created. I think that the church was probably viewed as a forever fixture or a permanent fixture, and I think church experts would give you testimony that the larger churches are a trend right now with larger congregations and larger amenities for their parishioners. This church probably can't ever become a Our Lady of Grace or a Colonial Church or Christ Presbyterian because the land mass that's here really doesn't exist to support that. So if you run the clock forward 25 years, would your urban geographer tell you that this site's probably something different than it is right now? And if that's the vision, then where do we draw the line for that transition between the church zoning and something else? And if we're not looking for either a big church or another condo or apartment, if there's going to be some sort of soft step between multifamily and single family, then this project is what that transition should be. It's 7 detached homes.
I'm assuming that with respect to the 2 older homes on Indianola that are directly south of the church, that you've got at least some kind of an option to purchase them, otherwise you wouldn't be talking about doing the 7-unit project. To maintain the integrity of the neighborhood, why wouldn't you just exercise your option to purchase those 2 homes and put up 2 smaller homes that fit the character of the neighborhood? I mean, there's 2 brand new homes across the street. One of them separated by the apartment building by an empty lot owned by the apartment building owner. But
Sure.
It seems like that's a sort of logical thing that would protect the integrity of the neighborhood. In fact, maybe even enhance it because those homes are older now. Why would you prefer to do what you're doing versus exercising an option to purchase and put 2 new homes in there that are single family and let the rest of it just stay with the church?
I think the vision is that the homeowner that wants a single-family home immediately abutting the church of a value that's commensurate with the homes that are across the street that don't abut a parking lot and don't abut a church, the homeowner probably that lives on the east side of Indianola would not prefer to live on the west side because the property owner doesn't want to have a transition that is parking lot and church. They'd prefer to have another single-family style dwelling. And as you look at the vacant lots south of the apartment building, absent some dedication for park, that probably won't be a vacant lot forever. That will likely someday be developed. And should it be developed with the apartment to the north, the condo to the east as a single family, or should that be a duplex? And should the uses step from condo apartment down to duplex, down to single family? And that would be transitional zoning for that side of the street. As you look at this side of the street, we already have a duplex on 50th, and as we step into the single family neighborhood, should there be a transitional zoning that respects the flavor of single family and at the same time creates an opportunity for a unique and different type of housing? We think this is a virtual single family plat that has some of the attributes that a lot of folks living in Edina right now are looking for.
Okay. Well, I understand your argument. I'm just thinking that the 2 houses that were built on the east side of Indianola are both, I'll just say, in the $1 million range, and both of those abut a 3-story condominium building. So wouldn't it be conceivable that for some people they'd prefer to abut a church parking lot
Some would, some
rather
may.
than the back of a 3 or 4-story condominium building?
Some may.
So, yeah, I'm just having, I like the concept. We looked at this concept down at Valley View in Wooddale with another builder before that building was redone. Somebody came up with this cottage, I'll call it a cottage home concept, and they reside in a kind of a cluster concept with parking underneath. I think the concept is a real interesting one. I understand why people would want to live close to 50th and France. It's just this whole balancing thing you get into of trying to protect the integrity of a neighborhood that's very, very close. Unlike another neighborhood that we did something in terms of amending the comp plan, where neighbors were, let's say, 1,000 feet away from the project. This one, they're right there, and so when you look out your back window, and now you see 7 houses in a row, albeit very attractive ones, it just seems like life would change as you know it. And I don't know if it's something you get accustomed to or if this is a great idea, bad place. I'm still wrestling with all of that, and I'm going to listen to my colleagues for a while, but those are some of the things that I wrestle with. And you and I have talked about this, so. Member Sprague.
Mayor, I concur. I think it's a nice concept. I think it's the wrong location. I like the reduced footprint, the reduced impact of the housing, and the walkability aspects, and certainly the sustainability. But I don't see this as transitional zoning. I see this as density creep from the corner coming into the R1 neighborhood. And I think I feel a responsibility to the comp plan, setting the expectation for the public. I think it's a high standard to meet, and they talked about that in planning. And for me, this is not the project that would allow me to amend the comp plan. So that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Member Bennett?
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. when I listened to the discussion this evening and also listened to the Planning Commission discussion, it appears to me there's a little bit of misunderstanding about the presence of a church in a residential neighborhood. Churches and schools exist throughout the city in residential neighborhoods. They're conditional uses in residential neighborhoods because their use is thought to be not incompatible with the enjoyment of single-family homes, and in fact, they often serve the residents of those single-family homes. And we don't buffer those uses because, again, that compatibility is viewed as longstanding. It's a longstanding development pattern in this community. So I don't feel a need or desire, I don't see a public purpose in creating something that would be a buffer from an existing church. If anything, in this setting, the church itself does kind of operate as a buffer, which I think has been described in terms of the parking lot. It may be that we see change down the road, but we see right now that the comprehensive plan that we just adopted preserves as low density all of the property. There is a line, and there is already that transition. That transition is provided at Halifax and just west of Halifax, and I don't see a need or public purpose in contemplating an amendment of the comprehensive plan at this time.
Member Swenson.
I also don't think of it as an area for transitional zoning. I don't think $600,000 is an affordable house. Sure, I understand why you have people that have interest in it, because there are a lot of people that would like to live. If you look at Halifax, and 2 blocks of Halifax has flipped from story and a half homes now to 2.5-story homes. But I'm not comfortable with this. I don't think it's the right idea here. If the church leaves next year or 25 years from now, I see this still as a single-family home area that isn't going to have that kind of density and that kind of narrowness to it. If you build homes that have only 25 feet to the south of land and then a parking lot on the north, that living space is either in between the 2 homes, which, as you say, would have courtyards, but it's 10 feet, or in the 25 feet that is available to the south. I don't find it compatible. So I guess I don't support it. Your design is attractive. I can see where there might be a place in Edina where it could work, but I don't think this is the place.
One of the things I think about is, I think it was when I first got on the council, there used to be a Lutheran church down on France Avenue, south of Room and Board, where that Sunrise senior assisted living facility is now. And so you think about, well, the fact that, well, some churches just don't make it. You know, then they become something else. There's a new life for them. Somewhere down stream, this may happen with Covenant Church, and then I think we'd want to do something then that protected the single-family neighborhood too, with some kind of appropriate housing. But I don't see now moving this into the parking lot of the back of the church. I could see a situation potentially downstream sometime where some housing of this type might occupy that corner where the church is, but you still have a significant buffer from the single-family, from the R1 zone. So, you know, you could tell, as Member Swenson said, people love living in that neighborhood, and Halifax has basically reinvented itself, and Indianola and Juanita are slowly reinventing themselves too. But I don't think we're ready to reinvent this far yet. And even though it's a nice concept, I just have too much discomfort really to see it happen now and there. So knowing the burden of a comp plan change requires a 4/5 vote. You know, I just don't see it happening.
That's the beauty. That's the beauty of sketch plan review, is that we get feedback early, and we get to understand what may or may not be possible. Let me ask one question. Let's assume for a moment that the 2 homes immediately south of the church are raised. That space could become parking for the church. Absolutely. What if the rearmost easterly boundary of the church, the other platted lots that I showed, were to become single-family homes on J Place? So rather than having a single family on Indianola, you had it on J Place.
I'd have to see what that looked like. You know, it's hard to sit here and think about the hypothetical. We'd want to run you back through the sketch plan review process through the planning.
Well,
And
no,
Are you asking if you put, are you talking about where lot 24, that's what's showing on my map, is that the lot you're talking about, the parking lot where you take out?
Without looking at the map, I wouldn't be able to comment.
Would single-family, are you talking about single-family houses be acceptable there?
It's the existing zoning, correct?
If they match the average lot size for the neighborhood.
Yeah, I'm sure.
To me, that's the only viable use, and then you get into the design and the setbacks. But use-wise, it's R1, so.
so maybe I'm reading too much into what you were just saying. I was thinking that inherent in this inquiry was some other notion that you had involving multiple housing other than single family.
No.
Okay. All right. Okay.
I think there's an average lot size for that neighborhood. There are some odd, non-conforming lots. There's a corner lot on the curve, but if you look over at the street just west of it, that is the alley for the.
Arden.
Yep, thank you. You know, we have a rule for average lot size. I know you've been through it before, so.
Yeah. Oh, thank you very much. Very helpful. Appreciate your candor tonight, and I don't know if there are folks here from the public that want to add any ideas. Or...
It's not a public hearing.
Yeah, it's not for them. It's just for us and to talk to a proposed, to analyze the proposed development. So
We appreciate your time. Thank you.
thank you,
Thanks for
Mr.
coming in.
Schoenmutter. I'll just comment, folks in the audience. During the years, I think all of us, except Member Sprague, who's new, have been on the council. We've seen these preliminary plans come forward where the developer and the architect have spent tens of thousands of dollars on plans, and something like this then happens. And so what we tried to do is design a process where they can come in and get kind of an initial feel from both the Planning Commission and the council as to whether this idea has any legs.
And the neighborhood, because the neighborhood gets to give some feedback during that process.
Right,
as well.
and you were very thorough about your feedback in a written format. So that was all, I mean, all this information from all these sources is really, really helpful to us and saves time, saves money. And thanks for coming. Thanks, everybody. Next is a proposed policy for recording and broadcasting city commission meetings. Manager Neal.
Thank you, Your Honor. As you'll recall, we had considered a proposed policy on this matter earlier this year. We brought this then to a discussion of our board and commission chairs. They gave you some feedback. You had a discussion, and I think that the recommendation that's incorporated in this memo reflects the results of that discussion. However, that is yet to be seen until tonight. So that's where we are.
All right, we've got, I think it's a number of options outlined and then a recommendation, and I'm counting on my colleagues to opine on what they would like to see as a model. I think I was the lonely voice for continuing business as is, so I'd be eager to listen to the rest of you talk about what you think would be important in terms of broadcasting. Member Swenson.
Well, on option 2, the no action is to be taken during work sessions. I don't really see that practical for the months that the Park Board or the Transportation Commission, if they go to quarterly, is not meeting. Is that something that's illegal because we have other boards and commissions that aren't televised, and they vote and take monthly action. So why would no action be taken during work? Why would the other non-televised be considered work sessions?
You know, it's not a legal requirement that they be on camera in order to take action. I believe that my recollection of that part of the discussion was that was meant to be a commitment to you that if they went to a less, a decreased on-camera schedule, that they would try to aggregate items that required action into those meetings that were going to be on camera. I think that particular aspect of this recommendation is problematic, and
Yeah, it is for me.
yeah, we've already seen, in fact, at our previous meeting when we had the discussion about the Transportation Commission's ordinance, and we had a discussion at the council meeting that night. The Transportation Commission had a meeting 2 days later, and under this provision, they wouldn't have been able to review and act on that, but they were able to under the current structure. So,
Yeah, I mean, I'd be fine with quarterly meetings of Park Board and Transportation, but I can't limit them to not taking action at the other meetings, and then a yearly for anyone who isn't televised.
Anybody think that this quarterly notion is just kind of arbitrary? You know, that
Yeah.
I mean, I guess it is. Pick your, Member Bennett, okay, Member Sprague. I heard you and I saw his hand.
I want to go back to the work session, because I don't know if the consensus is accurately reflected. I was the one who edited the minutes from the work session. The consensus among us was not the mayor, but the consensus was to do quarterly Park Board and Transportation Commission meetings, and then they would have regularly scheduled untelevised meetings the other eight times. And we're trying to balance a few different notions. One is there would be some cost savings, but I think it's more about efficiency for the commissions. They have a lot of work product to get out, and the chairs actually felt that they'd be more productive in work sessions. We all know, having work sessions and televised, that work sessions are very productive. And so that was the main driver for that. And for the other boards and commissions, I brought the idea of once-a-year meeting because we want to increase the visibility of what they do, what they're doing in the city, and educate the public. And having an annual meeting where they talk about what they've accomplished and what they hope to accomplish in the next year seems to me good sense and good information for the public. Same concept would hold true for quarterly Park Board and Transportation Commission meetings. They will have a more focused presentation for the public. Having served on the ETC, the Edina Transportation Commission, I know that some of those meetings I would consider uninteresting to the public, and if I could condense them down to 4, I would get more informative content out to the masses. So I think that was the rationale behind the original consensus, and I still support that notion of. And the other thing on the cost saving side, I saw some figures thrown around here. How I calculate it is we would have 8 less Park Board and Transportation Commission meetings for communication staff to televise, right, out of 12, because we're only doing quarterly. So that's net loss of 16 meetings that communications has to attend. And then they would gain 7 from the other boards and commissions that would have to have 1 annual meeting televised. So we'd still net be 9 meetings less for the communication staff. Know why? Okay, but independent of that, what's going on there, with what we're dealing with here, we'd be net a loss of 9 meetings for staff to have to attend. In other words, a cost savings of 9 meetings for the communication staff. Not talking about planning commission, just, yes, separate decision. So anyhow, based on those factors and the feedback we got from the other boards and commissions, I would support the change that I just mentioned.
That's a motion?
And so I move to go to quarterly Park Board and Transportation televised meetings with regularly scheduled meetings and regularly noticed meetings in the interim months, and then annual meetings for the other 7 boards and commissions, not including planning.
I second that. Can I ask you a question? There was some discussion that maybe the annual filmed meeting might not actually be, it would be more a presentation of what they'd accomplished during the year, and that they could do that as a video and not as a meeting. Is that correct? There was that discussion. Are we scratching that?
That was part of your discussion, and I think we haven't had much discussion staff-wise about just the creative aspect of that, if that's the way to do it or not, but
I mean, if it's more practical for one board or commission, and it didn't cause a huge amount of angst for our department, then I would certainly support them choosing to do that versus televising a meeting.
Okay, other questions or comments?
Items of clarification.
You and I just had a
Yeah.
sidebar about one of them, so go ahead.
One of them is that I think it is very important to require that if a public hearing is held by a board or commission, that does need to be held on camera. And I wanted to just, this is not to the motion, but to the discussion. As I recall, what really generated this decision, or this conversation, was not so much the camera, but the configuration of the room. And we went through different configurations of what would be possible, and it was felt by staff that you can only really tape in this room. So you can't put people around a table, either in this room or in the community room or the mayor's conference room, and tape them. So then you've got the way in which people can relate to each other. And for us, we have become accustomed to turning our heads, turning our bodies, and discussing. But for somebody newer to board or commission work, I think it's difficult to, this is a very formal space, and it is used for quasi-judicial as well as discussions of a more informal nature, but it is a formal space, and I think it was more that was being discussed than presence or absence of a camera. That being said, I do support the recommendations with the addition of the requirement that public hearings be held on camera. I believe that we intended to exempt the Construction Board of Appeals because they haven't met even once. They only meet when needed.
I mean,
I accept those amendments to my motion.
can we define public hearing, though, as something that we specifically set from here? Because they take public testimony at all, for anyone who wants to give it at any board or commission level. We've already put that in the instructions for them. So a public hearing, I think once we did it.
Noticed as a public hearing.
Yeah, didn't we do it once for Park Board when we had the bike path? That was a public hearing.
That was a public hearing,
And then one other time.
Transportation has also held at least one public hearing on the Northeast Edina. I think maybe on West 70th and Northeast Edina.
Okay, so but that's noticed, and it comes from us as an instruction.
Right.
So you're saying
Well,
public hearing?
noticed by the city as a public hearing.
That's fine.
Yes, that's a good way of saying it.
I'm fine with that.
Also, I do think it's really important in terms of the transparency and the accessibility to talk about the agendas and packets for the boards and commissions online. That will lead someone, a member of the public, a resident, to know whether or not this is a meeting that they want to attend in person. And then, again, the television becomes less important. And finally, in terms of that annual meeting, I think what we talked about is that since the boards and commissions can set their own agendas with their staff liaisons, that the form that presentation took, or that meeting took, would vary, but be determined by the board and commission. There would be perhaps a board that might like to show and have available for showing video of its work throughout the year, and put that, and others that might have other forms of presentation. With community health, as I recall, one of the things that we discussed is that on an annual basis, that body reviews the services that the city receives from the city of Bloomington under its public health contract, and I think that would be an excellent subject for a meeting that would have be on television.
So Go ahead.
Just to ask a couple of questions. So when Councilmember Sprague, when you made your recommendation, were you including on the back page of this recommendation 1 through 5 or just 1 through 3? Because the 4 and 5 are
Yeah.
the two items that about
I
the...
assumed he was including
Okay.
4 and 5.
Those two items, and it goes to what Councilmember Bennett mentioned about the structure and how people meet and how they meet in this space versus up in the community room. You know, as a matter of logistical support and cost, taking this room apart and putting tables out there
I think we're all
is
there.
really,
Yeah,
it's hard to
And
do.
let's-
I would
let's-
just encourage
let's keep
I
it-
would try to work with our commissions to get them to understand how to use this space.
We're there.
Okay.
Or
Yes.
It's included.
Good.
So I mean, what I'm motioning, I accept the recommendation, but accept with the change of 2 being regular sessions, not work sessions.
Then we would also add the statement in here that a noticed public hearing, we'll maybe make that language clear, but a noticed public hearing or direction from the council to be on camera is the other criteria that.
I think the mayor
would be-
said something about a city set.
Language from option 3 on
Okay.
page 3 could
Okay.
be worked into, I think, point 2, which addresses specifically the Transportation Commission and Park Board, unless we want to make that apply to all boards and commissions.
I'm still unclear about the discussion on how they record their annual meeting.
I think, I would tell you, we probably don't have to decide that tonight, because it might be different, and different commissions might want to do it differently, and I think staff could work with the chair and the commission and the liaison to figure out how they would like to do that. They all might, I get the idea that it might be in an annual format, but they might want to do it in person, they might want to do it in a PowerPoint, there might be different ways that they could.
Yeah. I'd
do
like
it.
to give them that flexibility, see what works.
But I get that idea. The other item that Councilmember Bennett raised was the packets online. We didn't cover that issue in here because it was, you know, it was peripheral to the main topic, but I do agree that we want to figure out some way we can organize that process and provide, you know, more clear information, better information about these meetings and where to find it on our website, and that has just some operational impacts, but we'll figure that out too.
Does this need to be, can this be an ordinance, or does this need to be a policy? Because one thing I worry about is we have, where is this book of council policies that so this would not be a policy, this would be an ordinance.
It's recommended as a policy.
Yeah, we're just talking, I think you can handle this as just a policy. I don't think it has to be an ordinance, it's just a little easier for it to.
Where's the
book of
will
policies?
Will that be in, you know, we're developing bylaws for the other
Yes.
commissions. Will we be doing this in terms of amassing council policy and maybe even council bylaws, ethics?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, Mayor, what should I do from here?
I think Member Bennett, let's hear
We've got
Member Bennett.
one more edit here, and that is that in the recommendation, item number 2, to respond to the point that Member Swenson raised, we would then strike the second sentence and third sentence.
And third sentence.
Everything
That's what I
after the
have, too.
first
I got
sentence.
those stricken.
Now can we call the question?
All right, and then we've added number 6, to be clear, that any matter noticed as a public hearing by a board or commission shall be broadcast or televised.
With language or as directed by the city council, I think. It's that language was actually, could be adapted from item 2 that begins at the bottom of page 1 and continues on to page 2.
All right, I think Director Benarott has it. Everybody clear?
Just one clarification for you, and that is to remember that even though we are converting Park Board and Transportation Commission to quarterly recorded meetings, you know, a meeting is a meeting is a meeting. So regardless of what kind of format they're sitting in, if they want to call it a work session format, they'll still have to go through all the publication process and and so on. That's just, okay.
And question about audio recording. The community room is equipped for a standard audio recording, correct? So those meetings that are shifted from this space to the community room can then be audio recorded
Yes,
rather
they
than
can.
video recorded? Thank you.
All right, I'm not going to fall on my sword over this one, so.
Would you like me to restate the amendment, or
No,
restate
I
the
think
motion?
we're
Okay.
clear. I think we're okay. Okay. All those in favor of the motion as stated, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Carried.
Effective July 1st? Sure.
That is a question. How will you transition this first year?
I expect you to transition it with the chairs of, Park Board and Transportation are the two main ones that need the transition, and I just assume you'll work it out with.
We will.
If they already considered their June meeting one that they televised and they don't televise another one till October, so be it.
Got it.
I also would anticipate that when the year is done, that we would get feedback not only from the boards and commissions, but from staff as to how it has worked for them.
Absolutely. Yep.
Great, good.
Okay, good. Thanks, everybody.
They were a statement.
And I'm deferring to the wisdom of my colleagues on that one. 6D, Manager Neal, motion endorsing report to the State of Minnesota authorizing the city's participation in the local government performance measurement program.
Thank you. This item was a product of the state legislature, the Council on Local Results. They established a local government performance measurement program for cities and counties. I've included the 10 items that they want to be included in any kind of performance management system. It is one of my goals to have a performance management system here, and all of these items are likely to be in that in the long run. In the short run, this is a pretty simple format to develop, and we collect all of this data one way or another anyway. The benefits to the city for doing it, of course, is it provides you some data I think you'd be interested in seeing in this format. Provides us a little bit of money from the state of Minnesota if they have any, and it provides us a waiver of tax levy limits if there are some in the future as well, which it could be valuable to us depending on the circumstances. So that's what I would tell you about and recommend that you approve it.
I'll move this item. Second.
All right. Discussion. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Carried. I wasn't ready for that big gap.
No, she was hesitating on her vote.
I have a question or comment. In looking through the information requested, it appears that we're already actually collecting data in a number of the categories, so it's simply putting into a report form.
Councilmember Bennett's correct. All of this data is already being collected. It's either in our citizen survey or it's ISO information from the fire department or Part 1, Part 2 crimes from police department. There isn't anything new here for us, particularly now that we have the citizen survey.
All right, thank you. Is there a motion regarding Resolution 2011-68 accepting various donations?
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor of adopting the resolution say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed say nay. Carried. Donations this reporting period are to the Edina Arts Center and Edina Public Works Department. Those donors' names will be posted on the website. 6F is the electrical inspections ordinance that's proposed as a precaution against getting caught by a state workforce shutdown.
Thank you, Your Honor. We prepared, Mr. City Attorney Knudsen prepared this today in working with our building official, Mr. Kirchman. It is a precautionary item. It's not something that we would intend to get into this business for the long term, and we might someday, but we just haven't evaluated that. But in the short term, if state government shuts down, this is an area that would cause problems for our residents, and this is an easy way to mitigate that problem. So we are asking for your adoption of this ordinance tonight on both, on first reading and to waive the second reading.
All right. Yes, Member Swenson.
The cost to us really is, should be nil, because we're netting out the cost of the inspections themselves to the people that are paying for them.
We keep the permit, and then we do the inspection? We keep the cost of the permit applicant?
We would expect this to have a positive cost for us. You know, it depends, of course, on who's doing the inspections, but at a minimum, the cost and the benefit will be matched up.
I would move this then and go immediately to the second reading.
All right. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we adopt the proposed ordinance 2011-12 and waive second reading. Further discussion? Roll call, please. Jane?
Member Sprague?
Aye.
Member Swenson?
Aye.
Member Bennett?
Aye.
Mayor Hovland?
Aye. All right. Good work. We're at correspondence and petitions. Anything other than what we've received? I take it the answer is no. Correspondence and petitions?
No.
All right,
You've had
thank you.
plenty, I think, in the last
Quickly.
couple of weeks.
And council comments. Member Bennett.
A couple of transportation-related items to call out. One is that it was really encouraging to see the Safe Routes to School application in the packet, and well done. Thank you. And those are a network of sidewalks around Southview Middle School, Cornelia Elementary School, and Concord Elementary School, sorry, wrong C, and Normandale Elementary School, and then also that Highway 100 link on the west side. So thank you very much. Also, a letter and resolution from the St. Louis Park City Council regarding the potential reroute of freight rail from the Kenilworth corridor, and it's, I think, relevant to our community in context of if the line is moved, whatever mitigations are adopted might have precedent for any increase in freight rail in our community. In terms of mitigations, again, what would and would not be recommended and adopted. I was the mayor's proxy last week at the Comcast scholarship presentation at the St. Paul Hotel. It is Comcast's 7th year of offering $1,000 scholarships to high school seniors, and the nominations are made by the guidance counselors at each area high school. They are based on academics, student volunteerism, and leadership, and the Edina recipient was Maggie Dobush, and I was able to meet her and her parents at the reception. Later that same day, there was the public art dedication held indoors this year. We've had all kinds of weather in the years that I've attended. It was a wonderful event, very well attended, and I encourage people to get out and see the new sculpture as well as some favorites returning at Grandview and also at Centennial Lakes at the Promenade. Finally, Mary Brindle and I have interviewed 6 students so far for board and commission appointments. We have 13 to go on June 29th and June 30th.
Very good. Thank you. Member Swenson.
Weber Park, I got to do the drop-off of the 7-year-old playing baseball there, and that street that runs just south along Weber Park that we talked about not having parking during the drop-off and pickup times for the Montessori school, it gets really tight there when we have parking for that baseball, and then the Montessori school was using the lot. Is that a shared lot, or is that a lot just east of the school that is a city lot?
I believe it's a shared lot.
Okay, because when they were doing their kind of summer program, you couldn't get in there because that was filled. So then all the South baseball kids are on that street on both sides. So then you can't get down the street with 2 cars coming in opposite directions.
We'll put that on our list to take.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Congratulations on the Gleason Bridge grind and whatever they're doing. They were working on it today. I was so excited I don't know what you did to get them moving, Wayne, but thank you.
Actually, that's us in the county. We did a handshake deal that we're milling it off, and the county will be paving it within the next couple of
Perfect.
weeks, so.
That was a wonderful handshake deal. Congratulations. Do we have a time limit on a sketch plan review? Because we have a time limit on our,
20 minutes.
okay, that seemed like a lot longer than 20 minutes to me, was it?
Yes, ma'am, it was.
Okay,
If,
then maybe we need a reminder before he starts, Seal, and then a reminder when he hits the 20 minutes, because I kept reminding, but I hadn't looked at when he started, so I really didn't have a clue. It just seemed like it went on forever.
That should have been something that I managed better.
Okay. And then the ordinance for minor change, can we send that back to planning to take a look at what Bloomington has, the less than and greater than, and then the percentage of the project that might change? So maybe we could, that could be clear. Right now, it's anything, to be honest, and either we have it in there and have it clear, or we just say any change is a change and it has to come to us. Because to be honest, you could read any change into that ordinance. And then an update on the York air conditioner. I know we got another letter from Mark Lovmo, maybe, L-O-V-M-O, asking, where were we and has anything happened?
Yeah, I've got an updated during
Okay,
my
then I'll
report.
wait for that. I'm sorry, I don't normally get this wordy on this stuff. Do we need to change the dates on this, on the covenant, the dog issue, the 3 dogs, since we have the wrong date on that? Does that need to get re-signed?
Roger, the resolution, does it need to be recrafted based on that incorrect date, or is it?
That's just I was not aware of it until he mentioned, but that's just a typo. You've adopted it. You can make a note, but I don't.
Pretty clear it's a typo.
Okay, fine,
yeah,
I just
don't
wanted to
think-
make
I don't
sure
think
we
we
didn't
need
have
to
a
do
problem. And then, buried in the middle of our correspondence was this really pretty interesting Edina versus the Twin Cities on housing sales in May and year-to-date, which shows that, the really scary statistic for Minnesota and Minneapolis isn't as scary in Edina, and I just kind of wanted to point that out because it's kind of a valuable piece. And I'm done.
All right, thank you. Member Sprague.
Thank you, Mayor. Speaking of building issues, we got a lot of correspondence on this since I've been on the council, which isn't very long. I've seen a lot of complaints come forward on this, and I think we are in need of some type of construction management plan document, something we can give to a builder that sets the expectations in terms of what they will commit to do with their site plan and parking and so on. It would also give us a way to hold them accountable and show the neighborhood that we do have a plan in place for managing construction. And I know that Planner Teague has a draft of that when this came up in the past, and I would like to move that staff be directed to develop that document.
I'd like to understand the concept first a little bit better before you move to.
Planner Teague, can you present a little bit on?
Certainly, council members, Sprague, members of the council. We talked a little bit about this concept when we were looking at the massing issue and how do we manage construction traffic. And we put a draft together. It was based on a construction management plan that's used in the city of Minnetonka. It's primarily more for larger scale or any type of commercial development. Expectations set forth up front with regard to managing a construction project. The way it's utilized in Minnetonka is any development plan, it's typically a condition of approval that they enter into an agreement with this construction management plan. We could bring it to the council, the draft format that we've got, and could have a discussion under a report and recommendation. Could be the next possible step.
Member Bennett?
I'm concerned about the issue as well as I think we all are, and visited that particular block and have observed the same conditions going on for years. I think the resident is experiencing exactly what she's and her family are reporting. So if there is a way that we could define roles and expectations better, I think that would be helpful, and I would support at least taking a look at what staff has already developed and going from there.
Is it important that you have that in the form of a motion, or is it just
No,
a
I'm
direct-
sorry.
That's okay.
It's fine.
Yeah.
Along with the construction management plan, I think another helpful piece of, I don't know, literature or something would be something that talks about the building management process, which departments at the city are responsible for managing what part of the plan, since there's 5 departments involved, and just kind of an FAQ sheet for residents, something that if they interacted with staff at the city, they could email them this PDF back. It could be on the website and kind of describe people what the rules are and where to go, where to lodge their complaints, because I think there's a lot of confusion just because there's so many different departments involved. Okay, you took my redraft of the code, so I second you on that one. No,
I
it's
thought you
good.
told me to take it because you had a really long list.
No, I do have I don't have that long of a list, but it's okay, because I just think that, again, trying to set the expectations, I do believe that the planner should be able to do administrative approvals of minor changes, but we need objective criteria for defining what those minor changes are, and that council shouldn't have to be reviewing every single minor change, however we choose to define it. So just kind of echoing what Member Swenson was talking about. The Community Health Board, when we were talking about boards and commissions, I recollect at some point we talked about that board possibly meeting 12 times a year. I mean, I think community health is enough of a vital objective that they can get together a little more often. And so it's something I want to suggest we look at again.
Do you want staff input on that from
Sure.
Ms. Engelman?
Sure.
As to whether she
Absolutely.
thinks,
Yep.
what level she thinks would be important?
Yep.
Okay. Member
Could we also get some input from the commission
Yes,
members
absolutely.
themselves?
Absolutely. Yep.
But let's get the concept rolled out again and see how it's received. We were talking about performance measurement systems, and I found a great system at the City of Woodbury. I sent that along to my fellow council members, and I encourage anyone out there to take a look at their performance management system. They have annual performance reports that talks about the City of Woodbury's performance indicators and key statistics. And this year they also had a separate document that looked at critical factors that they use in kind of strategic objectives that they use in creating their budgets. So I think all of these are important for us to take a look at and adopting ourselves. In regards to visioning, the mayor talked about revisiting our Vision 2020 statement a while back. I think that is something that should be done before we get into the budget process, as I feel that the money should follow the plan, and the plan comes from the vision. So hopefully we can arrange for that at a work session coming up. And then finally, I was reading some interesting articles on M-government, mobile government applications. It's kind of a supplement to the electronic government, the online, and the email, and all those different devices that people use in the government now. Basically, utilizing the same databases and systems, but expanding access. Some interesting figures I read were that 26% of households are wireless only, and there's 300 million U.S. mobile phone subscribers, so it's a huge part of the market. Even someone who can't get a computer line probably has a cell phone, and I think it's important that we take a look at some of these applications. One I looked at was called City Reporter. It's a way for residents to take a picture of a problem and send it in. It's a mobile phone app. To Public Works or to whatever, building department if it's a housing violation and so on. Just another way for us to utilize resident observations in an efficient manner.
We could even have URL. We can buy our own, it's URL,
For
right?
$185,000.
I thought it was 125,000.
125,000?
Yeah, I read that article. That's
Dottie
pretty-
Dinah?
Yeah, Dottie Dinah. I want to be Dottie Dinah. I mean, it's not in the budget for next year,
No,
but
it's
can't,
not.
Jennifer, can't we be Dottie Dinah? It'd be pretty cool, though. Wouldn't it be pretty cool? I mean, if you had some extra cash.
I'll tell you what, you pass ahead on that one. And that's all I have. Thanks.
Member Bennett, that triggered some thoughts for you?
That did. Relating to Member Sprague's last point, two pieces of information. One is that Comcast is developing a program called Comcast Essentials for students who are in families with financial need. And interested families can contact the Edina Resource Center, VEEP, or Edina Schools for more information on this. Information will be available after July 15th. Also, in the nature of correspondence or petition, a telephoned petition on my way to City Hall this evening from a resident of Sunnyside Road. And similar to the traffic issues that are being experienced over in the West 70th area, residents on Sunnyside are seeing an increase in traffic, increase in speeding traffic. It is a very narrow roadway, and bicyclists are on that road on their way to Lake Harriet. So I don't know what the answers are, but I did promise that I would convey the problem and ask that we look at it in a management way like we are looking at West 70th.
We're planning to show you an idea for that tonight.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thanks. Last couple of weeks, let's see, on the 8th, we had the employee recognition event. That was a terrific event. A lot of great employees in the city that being recognized for years of work from 5 through 35 in number. They come here, they do a great job, and they want to stay, which is a wonderful thing. On the 9th, attended the US 169 Corridor Commission meeting down in Savage. And then on the 10th, it was the last in a series of retirement parties for Doug Johnson, which we finally bid him adieu. Some of you were out there. Member Bennett was there with her husband. And some of you may have been there earlier as well. On the, just on a kind of a sad note, I've been kicking off these Kiwanis fundraisers where they have this Dixieland band come in, and it's one of their big fundraisers of the year. They did it last Friday night, the 17th, and at Southview, and it was their last one. They're down to just about 16 members. They're all over 80 years old, I think, and they've just decided that's enough. They've got some money in their foundation, and they're going to sprinkle it across our community for scholarships, public art, a lot of different things that they're going to be doing. And so we should try to send them a note and thank them for all they've done for our community over the years. Then we went over, my wife and I went over to the production of Anything Goes at the high school, which was a tune-up for the big trip down to Nebraska. 3,000 students down in Nebraska that are involved in theater. And this production is just fantastic. Every year they apparently pick about 6 schools to present to the other students, and Edina is the last presenter, which I think has some significance. The show is just tremendous, and I commend everybody involved in it. I think I told you I was on this municipal consent board. We had a municipal consent issue up in Arden Hills. I was the neutral. The former mayor of Arden Hills was the Arden Hills rep, and there was a guy from MnDOT, and we ended up getting that thing resolved, so that was nice. Everybody went away satisfied, and Arden Hills granted municipal consent for a pretty significant project up there. Last week I spent 2 days in Colorado with some MnDOT folks and some people from the Humphrey School, meeting with national experts on mileage-based user fees. More on that to come. It was pretty interesting. And then, excuse me, importantly, tomorrow, Wayne Hoole, the speaker for the Edina Chamber monthly meeting of the Edina Chamber, and it's at the Public Works facility. So look forward to that. I'll wander out, and I'm sure some of the rest of you will as well. So, Manager Neal.
Thank you. In fact, as long as we've got Director Hoole tuned up here, why don't we tell you a little bit about a potential solution for the temporary traffic problems that we're seeing at Sunnyside. Okay.
Dale to France Avenue. So this one is a little bit more unique than 70th Street. One reason is that we do have a detour posted that goes down France Avenue to the south, across 50th Street, then over to Brookside. It's a little bit difficult with the cross the north-south streets as far as Wooddale and Browndale to really to reroute that traffic over to that posted detour, similar than the 70th Street one. The other item is that Sunnyside Road is about 28-foot wide roadway. During the Northeast Edina study, the 85% speed was 35 miles per hour both directions. We have not seen that on the local streets down off of 70th Street. In fact, most of those are 28 to 29 miles per hour. We've just, by closing down 70th, we've seen an increase in traffic like in Dunbury and in those areas, but not an increase in speed. I have not had a chance to have staff go out and look at the actual speeds on Sunnyside. I did observe it for about, I don't know, a half hour, 45 minutes today when I was eating lunch, about midway on Sunnyside. And yes, there is quite a bit of traffic at that time of the day, and there was quite a bit of speed coming through there. What I'd like to propose tonight is something we haven't done yet, and you always kind of hesitate to introduce something that would take care of a solution, because then it's going to lead to something else. I want to at least run it by you to see what your thoughts are. What I'd like to introduce is that I believe I can get one of these. I priced this out. This would be a temporary speed table. It's a basically recycled rubber tires and stuff that they put into this, and it would be adhered to the roadway with leg bolts and such, so you can pick it up and move it around. What I would propose is that this would be placed just east of Towns Road, where we typically have the higher speeds, where it's kind of coming down through that area. What I'd like to do is eventually actually put this on order so we can install it within the next week or so, and then I'd like to create a draft temporary speed table policy that we would run by the Transportation Commission for their comments, and then on to the City Council for approval, similar to what we did with the speed bump policy for the alleyways that you adopted a number of years ago. As you can imagine, if we install this in this location, that we'll be getting calls, many different locations of people having extra vehicles on their roadways due to construction traffic and such. So I'd just like to, like I say, run it by the council and get your input on it, and see if this is something I should go forward with, or just hold on and explore it later on with the Transportation Commission.
Member Sprague.
I would say beta test it. Why not?
Yeah.
This is removable.
Absolutely,
So,
yeah.
Seems like a good way to beta test it and try it out and see if it actually has the intended effect.
Do we have the ability for increased enforcement as well? Understanding that, I know that enforcement has that random reinforcement effect, but I do think that people in this community talk to each other, so if people understand that they're going to get tagged for it, although if they're used to speeding on 44th Street, I guess they're just transferring.
Yes, we actually, the law enforcement folks will be out there, okay. Have been out there, I think, or will be out there. They're well aware of it also, because they're hitting myself, our traffic safety coordinator, Tim Olson with the police department, so the residents are calling everybody they can to do something.
And I think the hope that is with the design that you did for 44th Street, that what has been added at Coteen Park, the 2 parking bays and that crosswalk with the narrowing, the hope is that will cause a slowing of speed at what probably is the high point of speed on that street.
Correct, yeah.
Thank you.
I think you're on the mark. I think it's important for us to do something about the speed issues over there. The volume is tough in view of the work being done on the parallel street just one block away, but anything we can do to reduce speed here on a temporary basis and then develop some other strategies, I think is really important, and I commend you for getting right after it and looking at some strategies we haven't tried before in an attempt to get traffic slowed down over there.
Great, thank you.
So that's how we'll take this, and that's how we'll explain it, that this is a test, and that from here on out, we will be running these issues by the ETC before we go further with it.
That's right, and we'll be sending a letter out to the residents along Sunnyside explaining what we're doing and why we're doing that, so.
Okay, good.
Next item for me is, I see we have the chair of our planning commission here tonight. The council had asked, the planning commission members had a request of the council to have some sort of grace in our attendance policy based on the idea that we have added the numbers of meetings to their calendar this year after many of them had personal calendars established. I've distributed to you a proposal that was penned by Mr. Teague, but also talks a little bit but that has been endorsed by the Planning Commission, I believe, right, Carrie? And it's the provision that's highlighted and underlined under Section B that says, or in case of members of the Planning Commission for consecutive regular meetings. And the chair is here if you'd like to pose him a question or if you'd like to address the group.
Chair Graybill is with us this evening. We had a meeting about this on Friday morning, had breakfast with him, so.
Thank you, Your Honor. Members of Council, Floyd Graybill, 817 Wilford Way. I'm chairperson of the Planning Commission. We did at our last meeting consider a request to the City Council for a resolution and an amendment to the code. And the reason for this is this. You have established attendance requirements for all of the members of boards and commissions. The present standard is if a person misses 3 regularly scheduled meetings of that board or commission, they are presumed to have resigned their position. We don't object to that. And I might add that at any time, we serve at your disposal. If for any reason you think a member of any particular board of commission is not doing their job, it's perfectly within your purview to ask that person to resign or to replace them. So we're not talking about that. But in the situation of the Planning Commission is this. We recently doubled our meeting attendance requirements. We have moved from 1 meeting a month to, for various reasons, to 2 meetings per month. So we've doubled the number of meetings that we have to attend. During the summer and this summer, we did this, 2 meetings ago, I think. The members of our commission have had, their schedules for the summer were set based on a 1 meeting per month schedule. Now we're meeting 2 meetings per month. And we would request that the council grant us grace during the summer months through the end of August to excuse that 3 meetings per month policy because, as I say, other members of the commission have already scheduled events prior to the time that we increased our enrollment, and it could cause some hardships for some of our people. The second item that we're interested in is changing the 3 meeting miss to 4 meeting miss. Now that sounds like a big thing, but really it is, it's more onerous for the Planning Commission than the 3 meeting standard for other boards and commissions. For example, if you take the Park Board meets once a month, the Planning Commission meets twice a month. If you assume, say, April, May, June, meeting dates of the 10th of the month for the Park Board, if a member misses the 10th of April, it's not until 2 months later, the 10th of June, when that person has missed their 3 meetings and presumptively off. If the Planning Commission member is meeting the 10th and the 24th of the month, They missed the 10th, they missed the 24th, they missed the 10th. That's 6 weeks as opposed to 2 months. And they would be presumed to have resigned from the Planning Commission. So one way to look at this is it's really a stricter standard for, well, actually, it's 2 months. Excuse me, it's 8 weeks, isn't it? 3 weeks. The 3 meetings is 6 weeks. 3 meetings for the Park Board is 2 months. So 4, I guess it's actually equal. 10, 24, 10, and 24 for the Planning Commission, 10, 10, and 10 for Park Board. So it works out to be the same. So that's why we're requesting that. Again, this is a presumptive resignation. We understand that. Council at any time can replace the members. We think this will give us an opportunity to do our business without fear. The 3-meeting schedule, I was out of the country for 3 weeks in May. Had we had this schedule, I could have missed 2 meetings, and then the 3rd meeting, if I happened to be sick, I'd be gone. Now, some people might think that'd be a good thing, but I would hope that would not be the case. So I'm here to ask on behalf of the Planning Commission that you consider this request, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Member Swenson.
Something that I brought up that night that we had a joint meeting, but I haven't really ever gotten a response to. Have you given any thought to using a 5-member variance board that just, you always have to have 5 people, so the variance board would never count, that meeting would never count as a missed meeting. You still would have enough continuity because you only have 9 members, and you'd be in enough variance boards that it wouldn't be like our old system. And that might not only take some pressure off, but be just as effective and allow your members a little bit more leeway even on the 75% rule. Because I think you're asking for this now, but I could foresee that, you know, if you go away for 2 1-month period of time, you could, and then you got sick or someone in your family, you'd hit 75% pretty quickly, or the lack of 75%. So I'm wondering if you're giving yourself enough flexibility. I always hate to have separate rules for different boards and commissions. I think that's confusing. So I was trying to consider a different way not to do this, at least on attendance, and by having a 5-person, not a 9-person variance board. Are you only doing variance work at one meeting, and then the second meeting you're doing variance work and planning work? Or are you doing planning work at both meetings?
We are doing we're doing planning and variance work whenever it comes.
Okay. Then my idea gets canned, so then I'll.
And the 75% requirement, I don't think we see that as an issue. It's 75%. We've increased the number of meetings, so the 75% number goes up as well.
Gets diluted. Okay.
Member Bennett.
Just as with other boards and commissions, it will be important for the Planning Commission to keep track of that percentage throughout the year. 75% of 24 meetings is 6 meetings, so a person, or the math the other way. But in any event, what other board and commission members have found in other boards and commissions is, should a meeting be canceled and a person is proceeding through the year on the basis of the full meetings, the percentage of the full meetings, and then a meeting toward the end of the year gets canceled, they find that they have not met the percentage.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I hadn't thought about that.
So it may or may not be the cushion, and people on the commission would be advised not to count on it.
That's a good point.
What would be your proposed start date for the attendance suspension?
September 1. Excuse me.
What period?
Between now and the 1st of September. People have their summer schedules set.
Between the date of this meeting and September 1st?
Yes.
Is a period of suspension that you would request?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm comfortable with that.
Member Sprague.
I don't, I mean, you guys are rigorous attenders. I like that. I agree. This might not be enough cush, but if you want to err on the conservative side and try this out, I would support it.
All right. Is there a motion to suspend the attendance requirements for the Planning Commission between June 21st and September 1st, 2011, and also move the consecutive?
Separately.
We'll do them separately? Okay. Is there a motion on the first?
I'll move the first.
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor of the motion as stated, say aye.
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 Opposed, say nay. Carried. Do we have a motion on the second issue with regard to the Planning Commission's request to move from 3 to 4?
I will move it with recognition that what we are doing is keeping the standard the same. Because of the addition of that extra meeting a month, the 3 meetings actually equal the 4, and I am comfortable with it on that basis.
Yes.
Yeah, we've conferred on that, and I think that is the ordinance change, is it not? So if that is the will of the council, we'll prepare that in an ordinance change format, and we'll bring it back to you at your next regular meeting. Okay.
Okay. All right. We don't need any action then.
Yes, you've heard that is the will of the council.
I have, yeah.
All right. Good. Chair Gabriel, thank you for coming this evening.
All right, I'll try to, I have no more guest speakers, so
right.
I'll try to finish my
And,
report.
Mr. Chair, I want to let you know that I attended the Grandview area plan study session last Thursday, and you've got a terrific group of planning commissioners there and residents. There's over 40 people there, at least there were last week, working on this small area plan. So it's quite an endeavor, and there's some very capable people there. So you should.
Well, I commend the council because I think the city of Edina has a wonderful group of people on the planning commission. It's a great group to work with, and I'm very honored to be the chair, and because they do a great job, I think, and they're a pleasure to work with. Thank you
Mr.
very
Chair.
much.
All right. Manager Neal.
A couple of you have asked for an update on the York Gardens HVAC situation. We have been having a lot of interaction with them on a staff basis. The most important of which is probably a deadline that's tomorrow for them to submit their site plan amendment proposal to our planning office. That item is on the agenda for the Planning Commission meeting on June 29th. And that has to do, of course, with the location of the HVAC system, which was not part of their original site plan, but was built anyway, and is also built in the easement.
So they're just going to ask for permission to do something that everyone's complaining about?
Well, we should probably wait until tomorrow to see, but I would presume that they are going to bring in a proposal that would shield the thing and decrease its ambient noise, but we will know that tomorrow.
Well, it's a terrible situation for those neighbors, but on the other hand, I can't believe that Ebenezer knew exactly what was going on either.
So will it come back? I'm sorry, Mayor.
They don't strike me as an organization that would blatantly violate our rules. So, Member Sprague.
Will it come back to us then on July 5th?
Is that the path?
It would be your second meeting in July, assuming the Planning Commission takes
July
action
19th.
on the 29th.
We're almost halfway done with the summer at that
Right.
point. It's kind of a
I mean,
shame.
if they just come back with screening and it doesn't do it, and permission to have it there, and so now we're at the end of July, and nothing's going to, so basically we will have abused everyone on that side of the apartment through the summer, which is crummy.
It's crummy.
Are there any fines in association with being out of compliance with your building permit and site plan?
There's not.
Okay.
But they know that if they antagonize the council and the planning commission and the neighbors to the point where we say, no, you can't have this, then they have a bigger problem, correct? They understand that, don't they? I mean, I'd like them to understand that before they...
I can tell you that they understand that.
Okay, thank you.
So tell me again, or tell us again, what the short-term relief strategy is.
We don't know.
Well, I don't know that there is a short-term relief strategy.
Okay. So then what can we do to mandate short-term relief?
We can,
I mean, you on the one hand, I mean, you could tell them to shut it down, but it's a public health safety issue because you got all these
definitely
folks
is.
in there that
Yeah.
are older and really need to have a controlled environment from a temperature standpoint. So
Yeah,
it's really it's an ugly situation.
yeah, they don't have right now a feasible alternative to keeping the building at the interior temperature that it needs to be for that clientele.
Well, if this comes through to July 19th and they don't get their amendment, then what's the enforcement after that?
Well, then I presume the enforcement is that we direct them to move it, and then it becomes a legal issue, which then has its own timeline, which is not a short timeline either.
Can you comment a little bit on that, Roger?
Just so we're clear, they need two things. They need a site plan amendment, and they need a variance as well. And they'll be apparently processing both. If you do not approve the site plan amendment and you do not approve of the variance, and we tell them to take it out of there and they don't, then there are one of two things you can do. We can cite them criminally for violating the zoning ordinance, or we can bring a civil action to enjoin them to get a judge to order them to remove it. And when it comes to that, we'll decide which is more prudent.
All of which means that it stays in place and probably functioning during that time period.
Yes.
So all of which means that while all of that's going on in the background, the thing is still there, it's still functioning, it's still creating noise.
Both the civil and the criminal process take some period of time. They do not get resolved overnight.
Have they looked at the possibility of putting it on the roof? And just moving it now without coming back to us? I mean, I know there's probably going to be an increased cost, but if they would just be responsive and do something on their own volition right now, that would put it on the roof where it probably belonged.
Yeah, I can speak to some of we have talked alternatives. Apparently it's too heavy to put on the roof. So that's not an option. We talked about could it be located in the garage. Apparently this unit needs quite a bit of circulation, ventilation, so it can't go inside a structure. In relocating it to the other side of the building, while it could meet the setback on the other side of the building, the problem is the mechanical room is on the Edinburgh Way side of the building, close to where the unit's located. The lines that would need to be extended from relocating it to the other side, the issue that they're struggling with is it might not function properly. It could work, but it may not work to the level that they were hoping to achieve with this whole geothermal equipment. So.
And have they finished the whole geothermal system? Because originally one of the things was they were waiting for a component to get installed that they thought might change the noise. Has that been installed?
That has not been installed.
Okay. That was going to go in at the beginning of June.
Right, and it's my understanding it has not been installed, but once it does, the unit doesn't have to run as often or as long.
But it still is loud when it runs.
Correct.
Okay.
The other part that they would need to do is install a noise reduction kit that would be attached to the unit itself. That has not taken place yet.
So they couldn't, is another option to sell the unit and do a rooftop? I mean, is a rooftop even feasible at this point?
They're telling me no, but that may be a question that we explore again as we go through this process.
Thank you.
As someone without a mechanical background, but aware of the fact that this happens in other places or similar buildings get built, this problem doesn't get created. A couple of units on the roof, can they use window units or some kind of individual units as an interim? It just seems that a problem has been created and the effects of it have now been, the burden of that problem has now been placed on other people. Certainly the neighbors, city staff, the council, and none of those people had a part in creating the problem.
Right. We'll pursue those ideas and alternatives with them. Just an update on coyote management. That issue for our police department has really ground to a halt. We are having, despite pretty significant publicity, I'm just looking at some notes here I have, we are down to no reports of aggressive coyotes or pestering coyotes to our police department at this time. We still get observations of them once in a while, but not complaint calls about their behavior. We have not, while we are going out and investigating those observations, we have not had to implement any more aggressive action at the police department level. So no news is good news there. Our cable franchise with Comcast comes to a close, the current one on October 31st. We are part of a group of 5 cities that are renegotiating that franchise jointly. Progress has been quite slow on that, and we hope to bring a new franchise to you sometime later this fall with the November 1 start date.
Since I have a meeting attached to that and potentially one this summer, do you have a date for that?
We do not at this point.
Okay.
The regular meeting would be in October, but there could be a special meeting in August.
Okay, and you'll let me know if there's
I will.
a special meeting.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Final item I have for you is just to let you know that Mr. Keprios had a knee replacement today, and he's doing okay. He had it yesterday, actually. He's doing okay, but he will be out for an extended period of time, 5 to 6 weeks. And while he's gone, Eddie McColda will be the acting director.
Which, when you said that, I need to tell you that I had at least 10 parents at the soccer game come up to tell me that they bought season passes this year when they weren't going to the outdoor pool because we reinstated our later closing time, and they are all working parents, and they were thrilled. And there had been a whole hubbub where we were going to get a huge number of parents that were not going to re-up. And so please convey to Mr. McColda that his going back to his original close time from a year ago was the right decision.
We'll direct him to do something about the weather as well.
Yeah, that I'm not going to worry about. I'm just happy that they went out and bought passes.
Okay. That's all I have. Thank you.
All right. And for you, Mr. Manager, I will tell you, in the context of a meeting on television, that Caitlin Martin and Dave Carlson and I met with a group out at Rolling Green group of neighbors. Dave Carlson, the lead investigator on the burglaries that were taking place in our part of the metro. He did an outstanding job in conveying information to the neighbors, gave them as much information as he could under the circumstances because there's still some warrants out.
Good.
The person, of course, has been apprehended. I think he was apprehended up in Maple Grove, but we were active in the surveillance. I'm not sure about the apprehension. And then Caitlin did a great job on the crime prevention aspects of the meeting, and I think the neighbors were very, very satisfied.
Great.
So it was, I pass those compliments
I'll pass those along.
regarding staff on to you as their boss.
Thank you.
All
Thanks.
right. Thank you. Anything else? All right, very good. We stand adjourned.